Perfect.
What is up? How's it going? Welcome, BTC community, XRP community, DLT community, crypto community, and all the communities out there. Guys, welcome to another DL Talk. Appreciate you guys tuning in. What's up, Spencer Blackburn? How you doing, man? Stovetop77. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Guys, thanks for the 6 likes already and the 5 viewers jumping on in. Hope you guys are having a great day on a Tuesday over here. Starting off the week right. Let's see what's going on with the prices, guys. By the way, I'm not a pro trader, not a financial advisor, and I'll never tell you what to do. We got BTC at 38K. We got Ethereum at 2,400. BNB at 324. ADA at 137. XRP at 71 cents. A little bit of a retracement going on. We'll see if it starts dipping further. Maybe we're getting rejected at a resistance. We'll just see, man. Try to see where our support levels are at and try to adjust accordingly. Got ETC doing its thing. XLM doing its thing. What's up, Bones TEP? Bones TEP in the house, dropping a $10 bomb on the way in. The future is bright, my man. You know it. Our future is bright. That's for sure. Guys, we got an awesome preview of some news today, basically surrounding the SEC and their views on crypto. Garry Gensler making an announcement today. We got 2 articles about it. I think 2 different perspectives, or two different statements on different factors about crypto. One here, SEC Chairman Gensler agrees with predecessor, every ICO is a security. SEC Chair wants robust crypto regulatory regime for the US. And we're going to see some oldie but goodie videos here of Brad Garlinghouse talking about ICOs in correlation to this article that we're going to be reading today. So looking forward to that for sure. Just picked up some XPRT persistence. My man jumping on the XPRT train. Hell yeah, my dude. I just love getting the staking rewards from Osmo right now and just converting those staking rewards into the other cryptos that are part of the pool on Osmosis Zone. I just got Star Name recently. Star Name, one of the newer cryptos that got released onto the Osmosis Zone. So accumulating some Star Name. Can't wait to see what their staking rewards are going to be as well. Been picking up some crypto.org, some Crow. Just to hit a certain level. I want to hit a certain level with all these Cosmos ecosystem tokens, and then just start staking them and getting those staking rewards with them, and then using those staking rewards to sprinkle into other cryptos. Loving the staking life, that's for sure. Focus Pocus in the house. What's up, Focus Pocus? Legendary in the house. What's up, my man? Good to see you guys. Guys, thanks for the 8 likes, the 7 viewers tuning in. Let me know how the volume, the video, everything's going. Appreciate you guys tuning in, as always. So let's jump into it, you guys. SEC Chair wants robust crypto regulatory regime for the US. Oh, let me get a different song on. Give me a second. There we go. SEC Chair wants robust crypto regulatory regime for the US. America's security chief has crypto regulatory ambitions beyond ETFs and token offerings, which include markets like lending and DeFi. Garry Gensler, chairman of the United States SEC, reportedly keen on the bright line regulations for the country's crypto space. Gensler expressed the SEC's desire to install safeguards for crypto investors in the U.S. in a Bloomberg interview, stating if somebody wants to speculate, that's their choice, but we have a role as a nation to protect those investors against fraud. There's a ton of bad actors in the space, that is for sure. The SEC chairman identified 7 crypto-related policy changes currently being examined by the commission. These include matters concerning token offerings, decentralized finance, and stablecoins. Other focus points for Gensler SEC are custody, exchange-traded funds, ETFs, and lending platforms. According to Gensler, crypto exchange regulations might be the most straightforward way to achieve SEC oversight of the crypto trading arena. However, such legal policies may also include decentralized exchanges as well as DeFi players. Gensler also identified the crypto lending market as coming under the SEC's radar. Indeed, a previously reported by Cointelegraph, the flurry of state regulatory actions against crypto lending giant BlockFi might be a bellwether for the future SEC action in the market segment. For Gensler, the interest rate advertising aspect of these companies and the pooling of digital assets to offer returns serve as entry points for the SEC to impose regulations akin to those enforced on mutual funds. With Gensler, it is indeed keen of introducing regulatory clarity to the U.S. crypto market. These measures are reportedly not on the agenda for the SEC at the moment. With close to 50 non-crypto related policy matters on the Commission's plate, crypto regulations might be on the back burner for now. Indeed, the environmental, social, and corporate governance, meme stocks issues. Some market commentators say a Bitcoin ETF in 2021 is unlikely. Meanwhile, members of Congress, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, continue to push for stricter cryptocurrency policing. Well, you guys know, as we say on this channel, we'll wait until we see it. You guys can keep talking about how it's important to regulate this space. It's important to really focus on enforcing it, and then you say it's not really really on the priority list. So are you guys really focused on crypto regulation, or are you not? Are you guys going to start walking your talk? We've been hearing regulators for a few years now talking about stomping down on ICOs, stomping down on the crypto space, stomping down on DeFi and these lending platforms. You know, I want to see some action being taken. Sure, it might not really be protecting these investors because we're speculating maybe on some cryptos that aren't legitimate, but at least we'll know where the hell we stand. Like, where is this regulatory clarity, right? And this is what Ripple's been pushing for. This is what we're going to be seeing very soon, hopefully, within the next year or two, some regulatory clarity when it comes to digital assets and crypto. Who knows how long they want to keep pushing this thing down the road. We definitely know it's a very organized effort on delaying so long to have regulatory clarity. And of course, we have regulatory clarity across the globe outside of the US, but the US dollar is quite the pool to be able to have access to, and is essential for companies like Ripple, blockchain companies especially like Ripple, to have access to that liquidity that the US dollar provides, and being able to have that US gateway for ODL to all these other countries. So they want to keep delaying the inevitable. Very well. We'll just keep accumulating the bridge. GGSC, SEC starved while crypto investors were getting fat in the street. A single ZERP is sold in the park. I want in. I hear you. I assume everyone saw Crypto Airy today. D. Haviland, I did not see her today, unfortunately, my man. Unfortunately. Cardano's killing it. Are you ghosting from Cardano right now, my dude? Bullish crypto sniper. Focus Pocus. Let me check out this post from you. Guys, appreciate you guys tuning in, by the way, and thanks for all the love and the support. United Nations report right here on AGI. Hansen pointed towards the work of the Singularity Net, a blockchain marketplace for decentralized AI economy. That's pretty awesome, man. United Nations General Assembly Economic and Financial Second Committee. Back in 2017. That was a good long while ago, right? Very good long while ago indeed. But good share right here, my man. Thanks for sharing this. Focus. The link's in the chat if you guys want to check this out further. So let's jump into the second part of the SEC discussion here. SEC Chairman Gensler agrees with predecessor every ICO is a security. Gensler said he believes crypto trading platforms might already have had securities listed. U.S. SEC Chairman Gensler said he believes the vast majority of crypto tokens and initial coin offerings are violating U.S. securities laws. In a speech at the Aspen Security Forum on Tuesday, Gensler said he agreed with Jay Clayton, his predecessor at the SEC, who once famously said that in his view, every ICO I've seen is a security. Generally, folks buying these tokens are anticipating profits, and there's a small group of entrepreneurs and technologists standing up and nurturing the projects. I believe we have a crypto market now where many tokens have been registered or unregistered securities without requiring disclosures or market oversight. These tokens may allow markets to be manipulated, which in turn could harm investors, the regulator said. Gensler reiterated earlier comments that stock tokens and stable value tokens backed by securities qualify as securities in his view, meaning they must be registered and their issuers must abide by existing federal law. A typical trading platform has more than 50 tokens on it. In fact, many have well in excess of 100 tokens. While each token's legal status depends on its own facts and circumstances, the probability is quite remote. With 50 or 100 tokens, any given platform has 0 securities. Gensler also briefly hinted at how the agency might approach exchange-traded funds, ETFs. More than a dozen industry participants have filed applications to launch a Bitcoin ETF over the past year. Gensler noted that the investment vehicles with exposure to crypto, including mutual funds, already exist. While Gensler didn't comment on proposals themselves, he called out the importance of having investor protections codified into law. Given these important protections, I look forward to the staff's review of such filings, particularly if those are limited to these CME-traded Bitcoin futures, he said, referring to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. So I'm sure a lot of people didn't like hearing that from Gary Gensler, especially people viewing Gary Gensler as, you know, someone who's crypto friendly, right? Well, how crypto friendly does he sound now, right? And people may be considering that he's just like Jay Clayton. I think there's a difference between him and Jay Clayton. Jay Clayton, I wouldn't say he was he wasn't informed very well or educated on crypto as much as Gary Gensler is, because remember, Gary Gensler taught like classes at MIT about these blockchain technologies, right? You could see his sessions online on YouTube, right? You haven't seen that from Jay Clayton, but I think Jay Clayton was playing his role of what he needed to do as the SEC chairman at the time, which was open the door for Ripple to step in with the SEC, to step in with the regulators and discuss regulatory clarity, like they've done with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, like they've done with the FCA, the UK FCA, right? The Financial Conduct Authority, with FinCEN, the Department of Justice, so on and so forth. So I think, you know, Jay Clayton, as much as people bag on the dude and hate him and call him a clown and all this stuff, this lawsuit was necessary and it had to happen sooner rather than later. And this is going to be our gateway towards regulatory clarity, the gateway for Ripple's access to the U.S. market, to bring online all those U.S. banks that are already on top of the RippleNet steering committee. It's going to be an amazing time once we do achieve this regulatory clarity and Ripple's got their foot in the door, right? This is what we wanted. Now, Chairman Gensler, he's going to play his part. He's going to do his role. And guys, you know, him saying every ICO is a security isn't a bad thing, actually, for XRP and Ripple. It's a bad thing for the cryptos and the crypto companies that actually did run ICOs, right? It's a bad thing for those because Ripple didn't run an ICO. XRP didn't have an ICO, right? So we're going to check some videos. We're going to look into the past and get a window of what this statement means, really, from what Clayton said and what from Gary Gensler is saying, right? And we're going to get it from our very own Brad Garlinghouse 2 years ago, looking back, right? So let me stop the music here and show you guys. All right.
You weren't surprised. The SEC have been eyeing this up.
I got to stop playing things at I got to make sure I'm not playing them at 2x speed every time. Here we go.
You weren't surprised. The SEC have been eyeing this up.
Yeah, I don't think this is any surprise at all to people who have been paying attention. You know, for literally decades, 70 to 80 years, we've had securities laws that have developed both for the protection of consumers and investors, but also for companies. And if you look at how this has unfolded, the very name itself, an initial coin offering, or an ICO, sounds an awful lot like an IPO. And I have been fond of saying if it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck. Well, it probably is a duck. And in fact, now we know the SEC is going to regulate it like it's a duck. So I don't think there's any big surprise. I think in some ways very good for the industry.
Yeah, get your ducks in a row, y'all. If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's probably a duck. An ICO sounds a lot like an IPO. These companies are avoiding regulations, man. And regulations are going to, you know, I know this is our opportunity here, being so early in the space, to speculate on these coins, to get coins like XRP, XLM, you know, XDC, Algorand, these cryptos that we think are working with regulators, but these ones that, you know, if you have this anarchist mindset in the crypto space, in my opinion, it's probably not going to be working to your benefit, because central banks will win, regulators will win, the controllers of monetary policy will win. The amount of money in this market currently is pennies compared to the trillions, if not the quadrillion dollars that is out there in fiat, in value, right, that these global regulators have dictated to be valuable. And once they onboard themselves onto the internet, create the internet of value, have that ILP underlayer of value to the internet, funneling through the ISO 20022 standard, the regulators, the central banks, will become the vaults of all value. Doesn't matter what crypto you're holding, they will always have more. They will be the funnel to all value transfers and trace all value transfers on this planet. And let's say you want to try to create your own society. Well, then good luck from there, right? Good luck from there. If crypto gets to the point where you didn't win in replacing the banks, now you have to kind of create your own small community. And good luck with that not being traced somehow, some way, right? Because the merchants do what the central banks tell them to do. They accept the currencies that the central banks will tell them to accept. So if the merchants are told you can only accept the CBDC that we provide to you, then that means what's going to be the converter, right? What's going to be that bridge to convert anything of value, your airline points, your game points, you know, hell, your walking points. Maybe you get paid for walking to work instead of driving, certain things like that. You know what I'm saying? And then what's going to be that thing that converts it to the CBDC through the ISO 20022 standard to log it onto the global ledger, the global public ledger, where all transactions will be immutable, permissionless, but also traceable. So ICOs better watch out, man. If you're not playing with the regulators in this space, you're going to probably get screwed big time, right? The regulators are going to win out. It's just a matter of when they want to stop talking and when they actually start walking, really. So let's see another video here from Brad Garlinghouse talking about ICOs alongside with Ethereum's representative. I forgot what his name was, unfortunately. I forgot what his name was, but let's go on. Joe Lubin. There we go. All right, so let's check this out.
Bitcoin is
an experiment in monetary theory. It's a breakthrough in emergent collaborative systems.
complicated and maybe the future as a store of value.
In 5 years, cash will be...
Cash. I don't think cash is changing dramatically in the next 5 years.
Cash will be valuable still, but it may take on different forms. Some of
Wow. This was 5 years ago, you guys. This was in 2017, right? 2017. Let's hear that again.
In 5 years, cash will be...
Cash. I don't think cash is changing dramatically in the next 5 years.
Cash will be valuable still, but it may take on different forms. Some of those forms will be decentralized cryptocurrencies.
You should invest in XRP because...
Not even going to answer that.
We're solving a multi-trillion-dollar problem, and we're making a lot of progress towards that.
ICOs are...
Fraud.
Speculative, and speculation drives innovation. So they're very important in creating foundational infrastructure.
Oh, man, I'm sure Joe Lubin might change his opinion now with what Gary Gensler has been saying. But what did Brad Garlinghouse just say there straight up?
We're making a lot of progress towards that.
ICOs are
Fraud.
ICOs are fraud. So it looks like Gensler and Brad Garlinghouse may be seeing eye to eye on this perspective. Maybe they see eye to eye on a lot of things. Maybe Ripple, the first crypto company with an asset, with a digital asset, or using a digital asset, and gearing it towards working with regulators, working with governments, because they know that's going to be the main driver of the mass adoption of digital assets and the use of digital assets. And not only trying to replace fiat, that's not their goal. That's not their goal, is to try to replace fiat. Their goal is to try to be a bridge currency, try to supplement, complement fiat, grease the rails of fiat transfers with central bank digital currencies. Cheaper, faster, cross-border payments, that's what they're all about. Not trying to replace fiat, making fiat stronger. Right? Funneling through the ISO 20022 standard on top of the interledger protocol. Banks, big money moving to the internet of value, transforming into the internet of value. The relationship between bank and customer will be like nothing we've ever seen before. That is for sure. All right. Hopefully the music's low enough. Van Life Biker in the house. What's up, man? Regulators, smegulators. My whole life is anarchy. Anarchy 99. Anarchy 99. Right? Anarchy 99 was from the movie Triple X, right? I think that's what it is. ETH would be... ETH is definitely a security. Maybe. We'll see. There's a lot of cryptos that did ICOs, you guys. And right now, it doesn't look like ICOs are going to be looked at favorably from the SEC. I'm not trying to break the law here. I'm not trying to be against regulators either. I want to know what the regulators are doing. That's the purpose of the channel, is knowing what the regulators are doing and trying to be in line with that, right? Trying to shape our view of regulatory clarity in the same way they're shaping their view. I'm glad you are saying this now. I was saying this from the outset when every other content creator was bagging the lawsuit. I mean, it's not that I'm only saying this now, Chops Fury. You know I've been saying, dude, we can go to the very day. The very day. We're going to do this just for you, my man. We'll go to the very day that lawsuit happened on my YouTube channel and what I was saying on that stream. We'll go to the very freaking day, my man. It's hard to tell which day it is, but we're assuming it was about, what, today's the 8th, so about 8 months ago. Okay. I basically said XRP is the Phoenix, right? That's what I remember saying. Blockchain Global Hackathon. No, no, no. Where is it at? It's one of these days, right? It would have to be one of these days. Dang it. It's in here somewhere, man. I just trying to figure out. Okay, so yeah, we were hearing about a regulatory hammer, right? Dang it, we gotta find the one. I'll find it, man, and I'll show you how we reacted on that day. I'll make like a short clip of it and post it up later. But yeah, we got excited when we heard about that lawsuit. When we saw that lawsuit, my man, we were like, this is it, right? We compared it to we compared it to Doctor Strange in Infinity War when he looked at all the possible options of how they can take down Thanos, and they said this was the only way. There was only one outcome out of a million. The only way to get that regulatory clarity was to go through the regulators themselves, and they got their foot in the door. They got their foot in the door. Dude, while everybody was calling Jay Clayton a clown, I was saying Jay Clayton helped us. Jay Clayton actually helped But yeah, too bad. I'll find it later. That's for sure. I don't want to waste your guys' time. But let's jump over to some Twitter posts right here. Oh, Chops Fury, you know, bro. Yeah, I was also stoked about the lawsuit. Exactly, man. We were on here together just celebrating away, my man. Yeah, we were calling it a gift. We were like, this is his parting gift. But everybody was like, no, you son of, you SOB, now XRP has missed out on this bull run. How dare you screw us over of this bull run and all this stuff. And it's like, no, this is way better. In the long run, this is way better than just getting the short-term bull run momentum that we might have had with XRP. I know it's hard to imagine, but when you're talking about having official regulatory clarity on a digital asset, it's worth it. It's going to be worth it once we do. Yep, exactly. Ripple's not there to replace fiat. Maybe over time, the bridge currency becomes the currency of choice, right? But in the meantime, show what the bridge currency could do on a payments level and how fast it can facilitate those CBDCs, those central bank digital currencies, right? I know it. The funny thing is, it's like this is what it's basically. Right now, we're in a Wild West phase. There's no regulatory clarity. Fiat sucks, right? People view fiat in a very, very bad light. They don't like it. They want to find anything outside of fiat right now. But now if we start thinking in opposites and the transfer of wealth, the transition into interledger protocol, the transition into the internet of value, where the central banks will be migrating away from this archaic traditional financial system and migrating into the internet of value, where all assets, even gold, can be transferred within seconds, right? Settled, transferred, payment within seconds, right? So we have to adjust and assume that the world that we're living in today isn't going to be the world that we're living in 2023 and beyond, right? Once that migration begins to ISO 20022 and there's a coexistence period between SWIFT and the new real-time payment system, which we know is Interledger Protocol or Moja Loop or Ripple, whatever they want to name it, it's going to be that. There'll be a coexistence period up until 2027. So this is a very long-term view that we got to go with. But no, everybody will say, no, you know, we don't have time for that. The world doesn't have time for that. We need this technology now. We need it right away. Well, the powers to be have time for it, you guys. The rich, the controllers of monetary policy have time for it, right? So we got to think in their perspective. We got to think of how they think, right? So they'll drag this out. They'll test it to make sure it's super robust. They'll have a coexistence period between 2023 and 2027. Who knows how that coexistence period is going to be affecting the crypto markets, the digital asset markets, right? But once that transition's fully complete by the end of this decade, it's going to be insane, right? Seeing what these digital assets finally are going to be capable of doing. And hopefully we have regulatory clarity by then. We should. And it's funny how regulatory clarity seems to be lining up with the advent of ISO 20022 migration, right? So it's just kind of like we're going into a financial system that we're thinking the present day financial system is going to be the one that we're going into tomorrow, and that the governments in this future and central banks are still going to be around in this new financial system, is that they're evolving and making you think right now they're going to die, right? That what they're doing is completely useless and they are going to just disappear, and it's just going to be a world, you know, driven by the people and for the people. I think that will be a case in an illusion way, but remember the central banks will become the vaults of this internet of value. So there might be this perception that we're not working with these third parties, not working with the man, but the man is really just going to be, you know, behind everything, but not be seen, right? They'll be the unknown enemy or whatever, the invisible enemy, if you will. Legendary, appreciate you, man. Shout out to you. I mean, you guys teach me this, man. So much love, Legendary dude. Thanks for the $3 donation, my man. Crypto Mason has some riddle stuff. If you peeps like this, maybe take a look over. Yeah, I like Crypto Mason. Crypto Mason's awesome, man. Shortly after the lawsuit is where I bought most of my Exactly Pwn's TEP. Right when it happened and we saw that massive dip, it's like, this is dip buying time for sure. We got excited, man. That's where you really knew, like, people who were really in it for like that. I remember that day being so bleak for XRP community. You had people who were such long-term supporters of XRP vocally announcing or on Twitter saying that they're gonna, while this SEC thing is going on, they expect XRP's price is gonna crash, so they're gonna migrate some of their XRP to a thing like Cardano. And it did turn out to be a great trade at the time, no doubt. But it's just funny that you started to really see how insecure people became in holding XRP, and then the people who've been doing their research and, you know, been keeping track of Ripple with a microscope and these regulators. You know, we saw a whole different scenario. While everybody was like, oh, F you SEC, F you Jay Clayton, F, you know, F the government, F the banks. It's like, guys, they want Ripple to win, and this is their foot in the door. Right? They have their foot in the door. They're sitting behind closed doors with these people enjoying tea. But then what we see in the public is, oh man, you know, this is a really tough case back and forth between the SEC. It looks like Ripple's winning big time now. Like, you know, all this like drama and roller coaster that people get lost in. While we research, you know, people want to talk about the SEC case and only the SEC case with Ripple every single day. We're talking about Ripple, SEC case is the distraction. Let's research everything else outside of that and around it. What these regulators are doing, what Ripple is doing outside of that, the partnerships, the ODL, right, that they're still releasing, they're still building, right? Showing how big Ripple really is in scope, that they're not just solely focused in on this SEC case. They're still focused on expanding their, you know, their business, their products. ISO 20022 is still just the messaging system, but yes, it ties into, well, Chops Fury, if you have ISO 20022 being the messaging system, like we have a video talking about how ISO 20022 is really just another name for interledger protocol. And interledger protocol is all about value transfer as well. But with that value transfer, you get the messaging as well. So ISO 20022 in collaboration, like what we saw with, you know, what the plan is, right? I've been saying this is the plan. Right here, right? Interledger plus Mojaloop plus ISO 20022. The Holy Trinity right here. I mean, Mojaloop being made up of Ripple, Coil, Dwala, Google, Rockefeller, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, trying to bank the unbanked, right? There's billions of people in the world that have a cell phone, but also billions of them don't have financial services or access to financial services. Well, through these three, through the Mojaloop, through the Interledger protocol, through ISO 20022, you got the value transfer of Interledger along with the messaging standard of ISO 20022 and the companies that make up the Mojaloop Foundation, right? The ones that are connected to hundreds of banks. Central banks, BIS announcing them the winners of their ISO 20022 hackathon. So the BIS and SWIFT saying Mojaloop used the ISO 20022 standard the best. Their first Innovation Hub hackathon for ISO 20022. The BIS and SWIFT announced Mojaloop, which is once again comprised of Ripple, Google, Coil, right? Coil is being majorly slept on. Coil is a major sleeper. There's not enough people that talk about Coil either. But this is the Holy Trinity that we're looking at right here. And the marriage of Interledger Protocol and ISO 20022. Instant payment transfer, instant messaging, all at once. The settlement happening all at once. Trusted connections can be currency agnostic, but the untrusted connections, which is a majority of transactions on the internet, being done with XRP. It's going to be awesome, man. That's the plan. This is the plan right here. This isn't some crypto YouTuber saying it. This isn't you know, this is the BIS and SWIFT literally showing us the plan right in front of our eyes, right? And once again, like Brad Garlinghouse said, people who are paying attention, right, see that ICOs, a majority of ICOs are fraud, right? And unregistered securities. You got Gary Gensler saying that as well. Are we going to just disagree with these regulators? Are we going to just disagree with what they're saying and say that, no, you have it wrong? I don't know, man. I'm not going to go against the banks. I'm not going to go against the regulators. I want to know what they're doing. I want to be in line with what they're doing. I want to be in line with what these central banks are doing. They own all the money, man. They own monetary policy. What they say goes. What they say you can use for payment and what you can accept for payment is what will be allowed to use for payment and accept for payment. As a day trader for some years, I love having knowledge of the psychology of the market. Yeah. Ripple is growing extremely fast in Asia, especially at the moment, opening up corridors. Exactly. Will XRP be part of the basket of SDRs? I assume so, XRP Joe, but we'll see, man. That'll be something that happens over time, I believe. But first, show it as a digital asset that can facilitate payments of the big four: the US dollar, the yen, right, the yuan. Ride those coattails, everybody. Exactly, man. Hell, that was the theme in the internet bubble, right? In the internet bubble, the .com bubble. The theme was just roll with the companies that are trying to work with regulators, man. Don't try to overthink this thing and have this, you know, at least for me, it's like I'm not going to try to have these kind of over-the-top aspirational things where, you know, we're living in a world without government and we're living in a world without central banks. Like, as fun and rosy as that sounds, and it sounds like a whole kumbaya type of thing, there's just, you know, it's just an imbalance. And, you know, the closest thing we got to trying to, you know, make sure that people are somewhat peaceful, to keep them in line with being peaceful, even though they use it actually for power, as a vessel for power. But that's the closest thing, as we got government. But government evolves over time. You know, maybe our perception of government and, you know, they've just been around since the beginning of time. There's just always been a hierarchy, you guys. And there's always been a regulator or a decider of value, right? There's always been a monetary policy of some sort of what you can use in trade and not use, what's acceptable in trade and what isn't. But anyways, I don't want to get too crazy into that. We got BSN saying, great news, all BSN developers. The quarterly updates are available now on July 31st. So got quarterly updates from the BSN. We like keeping track of what Blockchain Service Network is doing as well. Optimize the BSN international portal to improve your user experience. We got the launch of BSN IDE service to support Hyperledger Fabric, Fisco, Bistos, Ethereum, Nervos, and Algorand. Algorand, major sleeper, that's for sure. Integrate Hyperledger Fabric v2, Hyperledger Biso v2, optimize and improve BSN Interchain Communications Hub. Guys, Interchain is the IBC, Inter-Blockchain Communication. Updated the interface of BSN Empowerment Platform to provide the DApp service management APIs to open permission blockchains and BSN testnet to third-party BSN portals. The launch of China Corda network, right, on BSN's China portal. Interoperability achieved between Tian open permission blockchains based on Fisco Bisos, Hyperledger Fabric, enabled by Poly Enterprise and Interchain Service, the iService, IrisNet. Interoperability achieved between Wenchang open permission blockchain, Hyperledger Fabric, enabled by IRITA, led by IrisNet. Right? Definitely bullish on that IrisNet, man. IrisNet is very undervalued, especially with, you know, hearing about Blockchain Service Network so involved with them, and major players from the PBOC being part of that project. Makes me laugh thinking that Bitcoin Maxi still think they'll overthrow. Yeah, it's just a lack. I think it's just a lack of education and just kind of trying to see the end game, like or a lack of it's not like a clear enough picture of what the results will be. It's not a realistic enough end game, right, that they have pictured. It's like they're just, yeah, it's not I don't know, it's not well researched enough. I think regulatory clarity is going to change a lot of things. You know, as exciting as this Wild West phase is, it's going to be catastrophic as well, because there is a ton of crypto projects that just aren't real and are totally fooling, you know, the masses. A lot of wasted money in a lot of these projects, unfortunately. But if 50 or 100 of them survive, hopefully we're in some of those 50 to 100, and I think we know kind of the blueprint of the type of cryptos that could stand the chance of surviving. Probably the ones involved with Hyperledger, because it's led by the DTCC and Accenture and major players. The ones that are working with regulators, the ones that are ISO 20022 compatible, the ones that are on the blockchain service network or connected to projects on the blockchain service network. Might as well change Interledger with XRP, DLT, ILP on that graphic. Exactly. I mean, they literally should just put XRP for all of it. But Interledger, I do understand why they had to, because Interledger is currency agnostic on a certain level, but it's between trusted parties where it becomes currency agnostic. And so that means these trusted parties already have an established connection, and maybe they have an established BTC connection, so they want to use BTC between these trusted parties, right? And they could do it. But if it's a transaction between untrusted parties, automatically the standard, because people are going to expect a certain standard out of payments, and it's going to be one that you know is going to work. You know it's going to be a cheap price, right? You know it's going to be efficient, right? And that's going to be fast. So that standard connection in the universal mode that allows for transactions between untrusted parties, because it has established connectors built in a certain way, it's going to be the XRP ledger, right? Like one of my favorite talks, Google talks, was Stefan Thomas and Chris Larson here. It's like one of the best videos to watch, to tell you the truth, because they tell you a lot about what they expect out of XRP, and it's never talking about replacing fiat. And a lot of people just think, yeah, one world currency, we just all use XRP. No, it's maybe moving towards a one world currency, but really it's a one world currency that's not even really seen, because people are just going to all of a sudden have a better payments experience. They're going to get maybe caught up in CBDCs. Maybe they're going to want more fiat because of how efficient fiat will become on the XRP ledger, right? They're going to want more of the US dollar. They're going to want more of the yuan, right? And I know that's hard to imagine, right? Because a lot of people are like, no, dude, fiat sucks right now. I'm talking about fiat once we start migrating over to ISO 20022, once we start having cheaper, faster, better payment experiences, right? I don't think people are going to want to be dealing with the volatility of holding a digital asset in crypto and making that their main vessel for payments at the same time. That's why it's very important in terms of XRP to have a very high price, because the higher price of XRP, the less volatility, right? So the higher the price, the better, because tighter spreads. But here we go. So he talks about ILP, right? All these connections, using XRP to send packets across the ILP. Right there, you can see it right here behind him. XRP in an interledger protocol transaction, right? All traffic over a link is aggregated and settled after the fact. You see SEPA right there, right? And a lot of people associate SEPA with quant over ledger. Well, right here, XRP going through SEPA. Application layer, interledger layer, and the ledger layer, right? Okay, but let me get to their question and answer forms, because these are great. Yeah, you know what? Let's just go through all these question and answers, man, because I think these question and answers are like what a lot of crypto investors kind of would ask Ripple and XRP, right? So we're going to check these out. Appreciate you guys so much, man. Much love to the Blue Crew. And I think this is going to be fun to check out and refresh our memory of stuff. So here's a video. Yep, exactly. Bones TEP. Exactly, man. Yep, exactly. People are going to demand stability. Exactly. SE is a hidden gem. D. Haviland, you're totally right, man. Siacoin partnered with Akash, right? Part of the connected to that Cosmos ecosystem as well. We definitely like Siacoin very much. But yeah, I want to show this guys to you. This is for sure. Let me turn off this music. I think it'll be fun for all of us. All right. Because this is how a lot of people try to debunk XRP being used on Interledger Protocol, or trying to understand what Interledger Protocol is. So these people are going to be asking questions in this video. Yeah, I think it'll be good reflection right here. All right, let's check it out.
It's like a lot of different coins.
Okay. I got to go up on the volume a little bit. Here we go.
To questions from you guys. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks for the presentation again. Yeah, so there.
Can you guys hear that clearly enough? Just let me know. Just give me a thumbs up really quick. Ali G, what's up? Yeah. Siacoin killing it. Yep, exactly. We bought that dip. Remember we were talking about the dip on Sia? Okay, it's good. All right, let's do this. All right, so a video with Stefan Thomas and Chris Larson back in 2018. A lot of the videos we checked out, guys, they were talking about all this stuff in 2018, 2017. You got to admire how clear the vision is of Ripple and their stances, that they haven't changed over time, right? And with, Brad Garlinghouse, basically mimicking the same sentiment of SEC Chairman Gensler and SEC Chairman Clayton. Every ICO is a security, right? But let's check out this oldie but goodie right here with Chris Larson and Stefan Thomas. All right.
Cool. Now we'd like to open it up to questions from you guys. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks for the presentation again. Yeah, so there's like a lot of different coins that deal with payments, like Ripple, Litecoin, Stellar, for example, that I've heard of. Can you go like a little bit over what's the the basic differences between all those different payment platforms? And then also, do you see like one payment platform just dominating and we all just use one of them, or can these somehow like live in harmony, kind of like USD and euros and whatnot?
So he's at, very clear question, very well asked, asking what are the differences between, Ripple, XRP, and, Litecoin, Stellar, and some of these other payment platforms. And if they, is there going to just be a one winner to it all, or could it exist with the US dollar and whatnot? So let's hear what Chris Larson and Stefan Thomas have to say.
Yeah, maybe I'll get it. So on the second part, I think it's going to shape out a lot like what you're seeing with fiat currencies. I mean, the world kind of has 4 majors, maybe 5 majors, and then there's kind of a, everything else. And I think that probably plays out here simply because, particularly with this sort of Wall Street wave that's coming.
Wait, what? A Wall Street wave that's coming into crypto? Interesting. This was in 2018. He was already letting people know Wall Street's going to be coming very soon. 4 major cryptos maybe that might succeed. And it, maybe XRP, XLM, Algorand, HBAR, QNT, who knows? XDC, we'll see.
A lot of those institutions, they're not buying, 2,000 different, kind of coins and platforms out there. They're sort of grabbing, I don't know, top 10 or 5, or it's some smaller number.
So these institutions aren't going for these like diamonds in the rough type of cryptos. They're just going for, the top 10, top 5. They're not buying every single crypto that's in this market. And,
in currencies, liquidity begets liquidity. All of this is about how much liquidity is kind of supporting these platforms and these currencies or commodities, whatever you want to call them. There's still a lot of debate on what they actually are.
Woo! Chris Larson throwing a little bit of a jab there on the clarity of the cryptocurrency space already, throwing a little jab at Bitcoin and what it really is, and Ethereum and so on and so forth, right? But saying liquidity begets liquidity, it's all about liquidity. And guys, fiat, despite of how much we hate it, it's got tremendous liquidity, right? It's got an amazing set of corridors that just need to be greased up, and be greased up with a digital assets like XRP.
So I suspect that's going to accelerate, and that liquidity then attracts more use cases. Like, for example, Ripple, the company, focuses on the enterprise use case. But we see these things. We see XRP as very much a general global digital asset without a counterparty. So you'll see more and more use cases popping up from different angles.
So you're going to have so much liquidity for XRP and so much efficiency and demand for you XRP that not only in terms of the enterprise use case that Ripple is using XRP for, you'll probably see some other companies coming out with extravagant use cases for XRP. You have Coil showing what they can do for streaming payments and content monetization on the web, right? You got Cinnamon doing its thing. You got probably some other companies that are just under the surface of what they can be doing with XRP, right? Flare Networks, right? Harnessing the power of the XRP transaction speed, right? And other things that are coming out for the XRP ledger. Interledger protocol connecting the online payment companies and online institutions to the central banks, right? Working in harmony right here. So plethora of use cases for a digital asset that's very cheap to use, very efficient. Already all of it's out there, right? And a general purpose worldly digital asset.
And that just kind of drives more liquidity. So I think that's probably the way in my opinion, how it pans out. But,
yeah, I think the reason we developed Interledger and the reason we built an interoperability protocol was because of that exact realization. It wasn't going to be everyone using one system. There was going to be a number of different systems. And actually, behind it is another realization, which is, my goal has always been, to solve the problem of, the friction in payments, right? And so I realized that decentralization wasn't necessarily the solution, because you see PayPal, they come out, they're free, then eventually they jack up their fees when they have an established market position. But then you see Bitcoin doing the same thing, not necessarily with as much sort of agency, but it still happens that way. And so what you got to think about is, right now, when you're on a payment network, you can only send money to the people on the same network.
Big statement right there. Right now, when you're on a payment network and you're using that payment network, you can only send people to, send money to people who have that same network. You can only send PayPal money to people who have PayPal. You can only send Zelle to people who have Zelle. You can only send Venmo to people who have Venmo. And sure, maybe interoperability is going to happen amongst those in a very limited sense of the word. But what he's bringing up is massive, because right now, so far, all these payment networks, what they're doing is just still creating a world of silos. Bitcoin is just another silo, right? So what's going to be allowing for that interoperability? Sure, there's going to be a handful of ledgers that succeed, but those ledgers are going to be interoperable, right? They have to be interoperable in order to succeed. Can't be a silo.
And that's kind of like pre-internet online services, where you could have like CompuServe, and you can email anyone on CompuServe, and you can use any services that are on CompuServe, but you can't access any services that are on Genie, right? And so CompuServe has this like moat. They have a defensibility around their reach. And so that's really what you gotta commoditize, or what you gotta attack. And so with payments, it's still that way today, where like if you're on the same payment network, you can pay each other. If you're on different networks, you can't. If you want to pay from your PayPal account to a mobile money account in Tanzania, you're screwed, you can't. Yet I can totally go on my mobile phone in Tanzania and open any website in the world, right? So we need that kind of interoperability, and that's really what creates the competition that drives down the cost. The reason we think that XRP is going to have a role in this system is because we've been doing, I mean, not to toot our own horn too much, but like we've been doing really well in terms of like the performance and the characteristics of the protocol. So I think a lot of people will choose to use XRP if there is sort of a lot of competition. Whereas like right now you use Bitcoin even though it's expensive. You use Bitcoin even though it's slow. I think if there's a lot of competition, people will pick the most efficient, which would be XRP right now.
Yeah. Woo! Mic drop right there, man. What is going to be the most efficient? What is going to be cheap to use, what is going to be fast to use, what is going to keep working and just working and working 24/7 nonstop, allowing for interoperability amongst payments. You don't even have to hold the XRP, but you can use it as a conversion type of bridge currency as well, right? But with more competition, more liquidity, right? People will just prefer XRP.
Yeah, you know, add that as well. It's kind of in an environment where a lot of the volume, I think, is speculative. I actually think that kind of use case has a greater tolerance for cost, speed, kind of doesn't really care, right? Whereas as you start getting into kind of these use cases where you need like, you know, millions of some kind of unit, that matters a ton, right? So as the kind of the ratio of real use cases to speculative volume changes, I think that dynamic becomes more important.
Whew. So when speculate, you know, versus when real use case, real utility versus just speculative utility, speculative investing really starts funneling in, when you really start having large ass freaking payments, trillions of dollars in the space being funneled through these regulatorily clear type of cryptos. Yeah, that's when you're going to really see the use case really dominate over speculation, and a lot of people get lost heavily in the speculation of these crypto assets and their current price and what their price is now versus what their future price will be. Well, right now it's just all speculative money in this space and highly manipulated, very much just pennies in this market compared to the trillions that will flood in.
Very true. I'm sorry.
Next question.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for coming. My question is around, so if you're talking about that XRP and cryptos are the internet of money, the big difference between money and data is that money is regulated, and banks certainly, you know, if they were the equivalent of running the phone lines before, have a pretty big incentive to innovate and sort of get ahead of a change that is coming. So you could see them easily upgrading the SWIFT protocol to be able to move money internationally a lot quicker. And so I'm curious how you guys see specifically XRP living in a more regulated space. I think, you know, crypto sort of took the world by storm, and governments are going to certainly respond the next year or two. So why do you think that XRP is going to be able to live in a much more regulated industry than data is? Especially because like you could see banks upgrading SWIFT to be able to support, you know, maybe like sub-minute transactions instead of transactions that take days.
Yeah.
So I want to like quickly question some of the premises in there. So I think a lot of the people in the room I think are very young, and so we grew up after the deregulation of data. So like the internet came out, and a lot of the laws that were around before then, copyright law, you know, cryptography laws, export restrictions around algorithms, things of that nature, you know, actually got removed, and their safe harbors got created because the internet kind of posed a technology that was on the one hand very useful, and on the other hand kind of in a legal gray area. So I think that the technology, just if you use it, it just feels so incredibly useful that it's hard to imagine how regulations wouldn't be built around it. I think that there's definitely an opportunity for people to be thoughtful and intelligent about how they approach the technology in the meantime. Like you want to be compliant, you want to do everything that you can to kind of stay within the letter of the law, but there are going to be ambiguities in terms of like just the law is not written for these kinds of use cases. So I think that's one thing. And then as far as like XRP, I think I'll hand it off to Chris.
Yeah, I mean, you're raising obviously a key part, and as I mentioned before, the internet of value is kind of equal parts capital, technology, and compliance. Compliance is hugely important, and the reason is simple. I think it's just because governments sort of want to have a monopoly. I think it's actually a more a question of, data is powerful, but money's more powerful, right? Data can show you, a life-saving medicine that your family might need. It can't buy it. Money can buy it. On the flip side, data can encourage a terrorist to do something awful. Money can buy the weapons, right? So the stakes are higher, which I think actually this is going to have maybe a more profound effect on Earth, good and bad. So regulators have got to be there every step of the way. This fantasy that somehow this is going to bypass governments and bypass compliance, you know what? That's just BS. And you know what? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. That is a champagne problem with a bunch of rich young people that can sit there behind their computer screens and like block out a lot of bad things that can happen. So it just can't go that way. And
Oof. Chris Larson gets very passionate when he's talking about how, like, you know, this perspective that a lot of the average crypto investors have, where it's like this very anarchic, oh, you know, the world's going to be ruled by data, governments and banks are going to be going away. And you have him just saying that's BS, and nobody really wants that. Nobody really wants that type of world. Sure, it's a fun little fantasy, and we of course just ultimately perceive that people are just going to be inherently good and be all kumbaya, hand in hand, once governments and banks go away, right? So very interesting perspective coming here from Chris Larson, and saying, yeah, you know, sure, we're moving value to be able to you know, transact as quickly as data does. But still, at the end of the day, value is going to trump. Sure, data is valuable, but value is value, right? Value is at a higher stake than what data can provide. But sure, there's going to be this little fine line or kind of blending of the two where, you know, because knowledge is power, data is valuable. And maybe our data is the value in the future. So very interesting statement nonetheless, and how passionate Chris Larson gets about, you know, be compliant with the regulators, especially if you want to try to get to mass adoption and really have a profound effect on the world. Go through the regulators, you know, educate the regulators, have discussions with them, learn of how you can work on compromises together and work together to bringing, you know, better financial inclusion for most of the world, right? Better payments for most of the world using a digital asset. Let's continue.
And so I think we're trying to think about that, try to be pragmatic about that, because that's the only way we're going to have impact. And if you look at people that are trying to support what's going on in the developing world, they are very much wanting to work. They're not trying to go around. They're trying to work within the system, because they know that's how you're going to have impact. So that's kind of the way we see it. Your question about SWIFT, by the way, the problem with that point of view is SWIFT only deals with the data. They have a correspondent banking partner that deals with the value, and that's off any sense of an Internet of Value. The whole point here is that something like Interledger and XRP can eliminate the correspondent, which is actually where all the juice is, right? That's where all the waste is. That's where the settlement risk is. That's where the failures are. That's where the time is. So
yeah, it's nice whatever Swift is trying to do, Swift Go, Swift Instant, anything that they try to, you know, make it sound like they're working towards faster payments messaging and whatnot, but the actual transfer of the value is still not solved. It is still being held in reserves in these correspondent banks because they want to make sure they have enough of these respective, you know, global currencies in their banks to allow for the transfer to really go through. And instead, how about you use XRP Ledger? How about you use the XRP digital asset to unlock that liquidity and let those currencies in reserve go back to their respective countries, and then, you know, start facilitating in this Internet of Value.
SWIFT actually doesn't have the combination of capabilities to do what you're saying. Right. Sorry, so thank you for the question.
That's a pretty cool demo, and I just wanted to learn a little bit behind the scene, like for example, the AI, who built the AI, how the money goes to the AI chatbot.
Okay, so we built a protocol that kind of takes Interledger on the one side and takes HTTP on the other side, and essentially you're making REST calls, so you're making API calls to these backends, and the first time you make the call, they'll respond with 402 payment required, which is a sort of an error code in HTTP that was already reserved. We were like, great, that works for our use case. And basically, it sends you back a header that tells you all the information that you need to know to make Interledger payments to that exact endpoint, or the API server that runs that endpoint. And so that server will be listening for Interledger packets in addition to the HTTP requests. And so when you start paying, yeah, it'll go back into that same receiver, and then the receiver will then credit you what we call like a token And then the next time you make a request, it has in the header your token, and so the receiver will know that you've actually funded that with some packets, and then you can proceed through the program. The streaming version of the demo that you saw, that's a little bit more complicated. This probably goes a little bit beyond, but we can maybe catch up about it later. And then one thing that's also interesting is that one of the services, which is the thing that builds a static site into a Docker container, actually itself pays another API, right? So you have another API behind that. And so one of the things that's really cool is with these streaming payments, we can actually have sort of an API that takes in money and then immediately spends it as it's trying to process the request, and then maybe sends a little bit as profit to the developer, and then returns the result. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it.
Great, thanks.
I wish I was the developer because I would probably understand more of what he was saying there. But definitely what they're setting up, these rails they're setting up with Interledger are very sophisticated without a doubt.
Thank you guys for coming to speak today. I'm kind of curious to learn more about how you might prevent money laundering and companies that participate in, like the payday loan type companies from coming on the system that exploit people financially. I'm interested to learn more about that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we really try to focus on kind of the bottom of the payment stack, so kind of on the infrastructure part of it. And again, a reason for that is that a lot of the things that prevent bad things from happening are kind of top of the stack. And a lot of that actually doesn't need to be reinvented, right? And the way we kind of think of it is like, let's focus on what's really changing. And we think this is the interoperability. It's the idea of a digital asset with no counterparty that can be sent anywhere in the world that's neutral. So those are the things I think what we can change.
A currency that is neutral to everyone in the world, doesn't belong to one specific country or another. We don't have that in the world today. G-Money, my man. Shout out to you, my dude. Much love, G-Money. Thanks for the $10 donation, man. Helps out the channel a bunch. You are the man, my dude. Guys, thanks to everybody who donated today. Legendary, Bones TEP, G-Money. You guys are awesome, man. Chops Fury, we were huge on IOTA. Whoa, that just blasted my ear. I hope it didn't hurt your guys' ear. We were huge on IOTA and are still holding IOTA. We haven't talked about it in a long time. But we like IOTA a lot in terms of a speculative one. I'm not going all in on IOTA, but I definitely like it. Stefan Thomas has messed around with IOTA before. David Schwartz has messed around with IOTA before. But the real major thing that makes me speculate with IOTA is their Tangle and how Hyperledger is using the Tangle. And so anything involved with Hyperledger, we definitely like to look into and maybe speculate on. And right there, integrate Hyperledger Fabric with IOTA, right? Hyperledger Fabric with the IOTA Tangle, right? It's a really good article to look into. But yeah, we were definitely in on IOTA for some time. We don't talk about it too much just because it didn't seem like. I mean, I don't want to give David Schwartz and Stefan Thomas too much credence, but it's not like they kind of said they invested in IOTA as like just to kind of get to know it and stuff, like as a play thing. But I do hodl some IOTA, but I'm not like going all in on it. The smaller commercial banks want it because they have to pay fees to the central banks, including the capital for whichever cross-border payment. The central banks, however, want to hold onto their system in which they continue to line their pockets. I hear you, Chops Fury. Very true, my man. Eric Jenkins, appreciate the support. Guys, thanks for the 23 viewers and 28 likes. Let's get back to the video here.
And then piggyback. We really try to focus on kind of the bottom of the payment stack, so kind of on the infrastructure part of it. And again, a reason for that is that a lot of the things that prevent bad things from happening are kind of top of the stack. And a lot of that actually doesn't need to be reinvented, right? And the way we kind of think of it is like, let's focus on what's really changing. And we think this is the interoperability. It's the idea of a digital asset with no counterparty that can be sent anywhere in the world that's neutral. So those are the things I think what we can change. And then piggyback off of, this is what we like, kind of the enterprise focus now is for that, as that first beachhead. piggyback off of what already exists for hundreds of millions, of people. The other thing I would say is that if this Internet of Value becomes a reality, I think the prevention of things like payday lending, obviously that has to be regulated. That's a big part of it at every level. But the other big thing, to what Stefan mentioned before, is sort of the commoditization of reach. If you have that, you suddenly now, every market has way more competitors for financial products. And it was something we saw at Prosper and Elon we got frustrated with, because we were kind of US only. You couldn't transport it to another market because you were in another network, right? This future vision, I think, is that the world is one big financial supermarket, and everybody's competing in every market. I think that goes a long way. But reach. If you have that, you suddenly now, every market has way more competitors for financial products. And it was something we saw at Prosper and Elon we got frustrated with, because we were kind of US only. You couldn't transport it to another market because you were in another network, right? This future vision, I think, is that the world is one big financial supermarket, and everybody's competing in every market. I think that goes a long way. But you still need...
The world is going to be one big financial supermarket. Very interesting. Globalization, here we come. HBAR all day over IOTA. I mean, what if they're working together, my dude? They are part of the Hyperledger Consortium, so interoperability between them could be happening. But I definitely like HBAR for sure.
All the other, kind of regulatory components pretty much existing. Some may go away, but I'd say probably most of them don't. I don't know what you want to add to that. But.
Yeah, I think like with you mentioned anti-money laundering. I think there's sort of a long list of things that are actually completely separate issues, right? There's sort of consumer risk. There is anti-money laundering. There is anti-terrorism, finance. Like there's all kinds of different things that you have to think about when you're building a payment system. And so if you have a stack like this, they'll fit in different parts of the stack. Like for instance, consumer protection, that would fit in the application layer. So if you're building an application where consumers are sending money, you have to think about how to protect those consumers from sending it to the wrong people. If you think about risk, like counterparty risk, that would fit in the sort of the ledger layer, right? So you have a counterparty, they settle with you on a certain schedule. How do you make sure they actually settle with you? So there are a myriad of things to think about. I think that it's kind of illusory for us to come up with all the solutions. I think we're trying to be thoughtful in terms of like getting it to a point where we can start experimenting with it and kind of get more experience with it. But that's going to require sort of a commercialization of the technology to really think about all of those use cases. And I would also highlight that Ripple has a commercial stack and a commercial feature set, and that is very much like Chris said, kind of riding within the existing regulatory framework. And then we have the open protocols, which are maybe a little bit more forward-looking, and I think some of those questions are more difficult there. So what you saw us present today is the more forward-looking stuff. So I think some of those questions are still open there.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the presentation.
This lady asked a good question, so pay attention.
So since the tech is currency agnostic, what would be the incentive to choose XRP over fiat or any other cryptocurrency?
So this is where I'd almost love to ask my colleague up on stage, because we have our team who's actually trying to integrate with these different digital assets and different payment systems, and it's just like many orders of magnitude of difference between XRP and let's say Bitcoin, and still several orders of magnitude between XRP and something like Litecoin, which is known as a more efficient sort of asset, and it's just a pleasure to work with, and part of it is it's been designed for that, right? Like it's been designed to be used as the settlement asset in Interledger, and so
it's been designed for that. It has been designed to be the settlement asset in Interledger, and like we've been saying, universal mode uses XRP between untrusted connections. Sure, trusted connections can use whatever they want, right? They can use BTC, but why would they decide to use BTC if they know that their transaction can go through right away, instantly, in the universal mode, or using XRP, using that connector, right? But Many orders of magnitude difference between using BTC and XRP, between LTC and XRP, but here we go.
Has a lot of functionality like payment channels built in a certain way.
Payment channels built in a certain way. What do you think they're doing with the validators that they have in the XRPL, and who's running those validators, right? Who owns a ton of XRP, right? These central banks that are going to be custodying or using that XRP liquidity pool, right? Their payment connectors set up in a certain way and using XRP as the standard, the native asset in Interledger. Once again,
trying to integrate with these different digital assets and different payment systems, and it's just like many orders of magnitude of difference between XRP and, let's say, Bitcoin, and still several orders of magnitude between XRP and something like Litecoin, which is known as a more efficient sort of asset. And it's just a pleasure to work with, and part of it is it's been designed for that, right? Like, it's been designed to be used as the settlement asset in Interledger, and so has a lot of functionality like payment channels built in a certain way that are incredibly efficient for this particular use case. And so I think the main answer is right now it's just the best thing to use. Like, we talk to people, hey, let's set up a connector. Well, what do we peer with? Well, we could use Litecoin, or we could use XRP, but XRP will just be cheaper, so let's use XRP. And so I think as much, to the extent that these connectors are going to be competing with each other and they're trying to think about their margins, XRP is just going to look like a very good option for them.
Yeah, in this world, you'll need some digital asset that is super fast, super cheap, endlessly scalable. That will serve the world very well, right? Better.
You need a digital asset that's super fast, super cheap, endlessly scalable. That's not some crypto YouTuber saying it, right? That's not some crypto Twitter person saying it. It's fast, cheap, carbon efficient, right? Carbon neutral, digital asset, endlessly scalable is going to be the standard in this future of digital assets. Sorry for the ones that can only transact, 1 in 5 transactions per block or whatever. High transactions, very low costs in the internet of value.
Better than, let's say, using a dollar or using a euro, right? Something that is neutral to any network. So we're absolutely confident that some digital asset will be a key part of this internet of value. But we think that sort of fast, cost and scalability are going to be those key things. And that's what's going to drive the liquidity that's going to make these things really useful.
Yeah, and XRP is not static either. It's like we're constantly thinking about how to help improve it. There's a community out there that's thinking about how to improve it. So you can expect that it will get better as well as time goes on.
XRP will only get better as time goes on. The community around it, it's endlessly scalable, very fast, cheap, efficient, trusted connectors set up in a certain way to use XRP, untrusted connections using XRP in Interledger protocol. So yeah, the argument, but Interledger is currency agnostic, so what if they were announced winner of ISO 20022 hackathon by BIS? Doesn't mean they're using XRP. Well, you just heard from Stefan Thomas himself saying XRP designed to be the native asset of Interledger. And if you look at how Interledger does transactions, if you really look into what Interledger does, it's split up into 2 modes, atomic mode and universal mode. Universal mode uses XRP in all untrusted connections.
Final question.
Hi. So I was listening in the very beginning of your presentation about how you think XRP is better over Bitcoin, in the sense that Bitcoin is a lot slower, a lot more expensive. But it is there for a reason, right? Because it requires at least 6 confirmation across the network in order for a transaction to happen, and that is there in order to address the double spending problem. So I was just curious, in your own words, how does that XRP address the double spend problem if it's just a confirmation between the 2 nodes?
Yeah. So if you're not technical, please do something else for a little bit, because there's no way to answer that question without getting into some of the technology. So Bitcoin uses a consensus process, which is essentially based around the assumption that majority of hashing power will never be held by a coordinated malicious attacker. And so if you're watching what the majority of hashing power is doing, you'll tend to be on a state of the network that is reasonable and doesn't contain reverted transactions and so on. However, the protocol as such does allow rollbacks, right? So you can, if somebody else presents you with a chain that's longer, has more hashing power behind it, you will roll back your transactions and switch to that. And I know that because I was one of the first people to implement a full node Bitcoin reimplementation from scratch. So I wrote that code, and it's very complex, annoying code to write.
Very complex, annoying code to write. Did one of the first people to do a full node reimplementation of Bitcoin, right? And did the JavaScript implementation of Bitcoin. Early developer of Bitcoin who came to XRP, to Ripple, with David Schwartz, another early developer of Bitcoin, with Arthur Brito, another anonymous early developer from Bitcoin, the Bitcoin team, and Warren Paul Anderson, right?
So I will remember that forever. On the Ripple side, such code does not exist. There's no way to roll back the network. Now, how is that possible? Well,
no way to roll back the network. No way to roll back XRPL.
The way that Ripple works is, as I mentioned before, the users select these validators, and then we essentially use that input as an input to sort of an algorithm where we look at the graph of what people selected, and then we run a consensus on validators that are central to that graph, or like that are highly trusted within that graph. And so it's sort of this two-step process. And what that means is that when the first step is complete and you have identified which validators you're looking for, you don't have to worry about there being like more hashing power just over the horizon. Like once you hear from the validators that you've identified as being the ones that are validating, or like the ones that you're listening to, then you don't have to worry about some other validator coming in later saying like, no, actually we decided this, you just didn't hear about it yet. And so there's no need to roll back or to rewrite history. Once validators have committed to a decision, they can't change their minds essentially. And so that has a couple of impacts, or like a couple of ways that the protocol is different because of that. Number one, you only have to wait for one confirmation. You wouldn't wait for multiple confirmations because validators can't change their mind. You can't roll back, so there's no probabilistic aspect to it. Number two is we can process, or we can create blocks on a cadence, so we can create blocks on like a fixed interval, as opposed to a random interval like Bitcoin, where blocks can come out very close together, or there could be no block for a long time. Because we know which validators are supposed to generate blocks, they can generate them on that cadence. And then finally, I think, did I cover everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. There's a really good talk on, I shouldn't call it really good, but there's a talk by myself on consensus that you can find out from the Consensus 2017 conference, where I go into a little bit more detail. And I'm also happy to talk to you afterwards, but that's kind of the high level, quick description.
Cool. Chris. Guys, thank you so much for.
So yeah, why not? Let's just check out a little bit of Stefan Thomas's Consensus 2017. And guys, appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope that was informative to you guys. I hope that wasn't a waste of time to you guys. Maybe it's stuff you guys already know coming from the XRP community, but I always enjoy just visiting that and seeing if there's anything I might have missed, any breadcrumbs that are relevant to now, to the present day, and just knowing how clear and focused this company really is, man, and the developers that are part of it, and just like kind of sort of hive mindish, even, if you will, that they had, like, type of scenario they got going on here. So let's see if we can see Stefan Thomas presenting a consensus right here. Sorry for the music right there, guys. So it's 10 minutes, but let's see.
Yes, my name is Stefan Thomas. I'm CTO at Ripple. And today I want to talk a little bit about how XRP works, what it is, and what's special about it compared to other digital assets out there.
Eric Jenkins, yeah, that was great. I appreciate you, man. Alex Yee in the house. What's up, man? Can't roll it back, meaning it's been validated from day one and can't be changed. Chops Fury, exactly, my dude. I wonder how much open protocol they have developed outside of the regs. Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, when you're dealing with open source technology like that, there's no clear regulatory clarity just yet. So maybe, that's what they're all waiting for, is that regulatory clarity of, what are they going to decide to do with these open source technologies, right? Because Ripple as a company has been doing everything they can to be regulatory compliant, right? And working with the regulators. But the digital asset that they use, which is an open source technology, it's not really clear regulations for that, right? And what it is and how it can be used, right? And who can use it, right?
So, first of all, the problem that XRP is trying to solve is today the way payments work internationally is that companies will actually pre-fund all over the world and kind of hold funds all over the world to the tune of $27 trillion in total. And that's money that's not being used, that's not being reinvested, that's not being loaned out, that's money that's sitting there in case you want to make a payment into a certain country. And we think that that problem can be addressed with digital assets. Digital assets are like gold that you can move anywhere in the world instantly. And so they provide an alternative to pre-funding liquidity all over the world.
Did he just say like gold, right? That could be accessed immediately? Just once again.
Assets. Digital assets are like gold that you can move anywhere in the world instantly. And
digital assets are like gold that you can move anywhere in the world instantly.
So they provide an alternative to pre-funding liquidity all over the world.
They provide an alternative to pre-funding for liquidity all around the world. A neutral asset, right? That doesn't belong to one specific country or another. That's endlessly scalable, cheap, and efficient to use.
As a company, we build solutions for banks. And so we go out to banks and we help them reduce their costs with cross-border payments. What's that?
Very convenient that it's a 33%, right?
Okay, sorry. We help them reduce their costs with cross-border payments. And part of that story is we think that we can reduce the cost even further if we introduce digital assets, because we can reduce the cost of liquidity on top of some of the other efficiency improvements that we can do with the technology. Okay, now...
So do you see that? Do you see... Wait. Okay. So far there's a good amount of volatility going on. There's a good amount of volatility going on with XRP and Ripple, right? Or well, with XRP, right? The digital asset currently. So right now, if you look at this graph, it says current system, you got, 20% reduction costs or whatnot, or you get a 20.9, but if you use Ripple, you get 33% reduction cost. If you use Ripple plus XRP, you get 42% reduction cost. And then if you use Ripple XRP cents, if XRP costs $1, they need 1 million XRP, which would cost $1 million. If XRP costs $1 million, they need 1 XRP, which would again cost $1 million. Right? But not only that, let me see. I think I'm gonna have to type down let me see. I gotta type down Joe Katz. That's what I gotta do. Give me a sec. Because he talks about higher price and the importance of a higher price XRP. So, except that higher prices make payments cheaper. Right now, you can buy $1 million house of Bitcoins. When Bitcoins were $300, it would move the market too much and be too expensive to be practical. So, higher prices make payments cheaper. Right? However, higher prices mean that same size payments will move the market less, less volatility, making them cheaper. Right? And then right there, seeing an inline Ripple plus XRP and a low volatility XRP, super high price XRP, allows payments to be cheaper, even increasing the reduction in cost. Higher price XRP is very much needed.
With the technology. Okay, now, when you reduce the cost in a system, what that can do is it can vastly increase the volume that's going through that system. And so I think a lot of people today are thinking about, well, given the current payment volume, how much cost reduction can we achieve? And that's actually missing the bigger point, which is, aside from the cost reduction, there is a huge amount of potential new business that can be created if you reduce the cost of payments worldwide. And that's what we call the Internet of Value. When the volume really explodes, that's what we call the Internet of Value, and that's our mission as a company. So
when the volume really explodes, that's the Internet of Value.
Designing that digital asset, there's certain properties that we want. If you want to use an asset for settlement, especially in a bank context, there's a couple of different criteria by which you'd want to evaluate those assets and that you want to design those assets for. The first one, of course, is speed. We already said that the whole problem with the system today is that payments take too long, and that causes a lot of costs in terms of having to pre-fund. And so, obviously, our asset has to be fast. You have to be able to move it anywhere in the world instantly. It also has to be consistent. So what that means is you want that speed to be the same all the time. You don't want the asset to be sometimes slow, sometimes fast, because then you can't rely on it, and you have to price the risk of it being slow into your rate anyway, right? So you want it to be consistently fast. Next, you want it to be cheap to move around. So you don't want very high transaction fees. So the lower your transaction fees, the better. Next, you want it to be scalable. So you don't want an asset where you can make few transactions, but as soon as it gets popular, it kind of breaks down. And then finally, some of us care about the environment, and so you might want an asset that doesn't waste a lot of power, electricity, etc. And
some of us care about the environment. 2017, you guys, and already seeing that green standard well underway in the present day. 2017, talking about caring about the environment and having a low cost, low power payment system, settlement asset.
That's just something that we didn't really think about a lot in the early days of Bitcoin, but as Bitcoin gets bigger and bigger, this is becoming more and more of a concern for a lot of people. So just as two examples, I'm going to compare Bitcoin and Ripple just as the most prominent sort of proof of work-based system, and as well as the most prominent Ripple consensus-based system. Now, first big difference between proof of work and Ripple consensus is that proof of work requires multiple confirmations. And that's because in a proof of work system, there can always be more miners out there that you don't know about, and they might have more blocks, and they might have a longer chain than you know about. And so you can never trust that you're done. You can never trust the transaction's final unless you wait a little bit to make sure there aren't any blocks that are still kind of being generated somewhere else that you just haven't heard about yet. So the longer you wait, the more confident you get. By contrast with Ripple consensus, the identity of the validators is decided up front. So before you even try to validate a ledger, you know which validator's opinions you care about. And so as a result, we can get finality even if we just have the first validated ledger. If it's validated, it can't be reversed. So you get finality much quicker. So if you look at it from a perspective of the frequency with which you can confirm transactions, you can see that with Bitcoin, I can only get within 1 hour, a couple of blocks, a couple of chances to get my transaction confirmed. And if I'm waiting for 6 confirmations, there's a pretty good chance I'll be waiting for more than an hour. By contrast, Ripple processes transactions within a few seconds. And the other thing that's interesting is if we zoom into the first part of this chart, the frequency in Ripple is incredibly consistent, right? So we close ledgers around every 4 seconds, as opposed to the random nature of proof of work, where blocks are generated at random intervals. And so that interval could be very short or it could be very long. And so if you're processing payments, it's a nice benefit to be able to process so consistently. And finally, because we only need 1 confirmation, that kind of exacerbates the speed difference because we don't have to wait for lots of confirmations. So in these categories, Ripple really has a very strong benefit. Talking about the cost is clearly in favor of Ripple. We charge, or the network charges only about 0.03 of a cent per transaction, whereas in Bitcoin, the average transaction fee is nearly $2 right now.
And it's gotten less. The cost has gotten even less, right? So we're talking about that endlessly scalable, adaptable type of consensus, that ledger.
Now, some people might say, like, okay, well, your transaction fees are low, but that's just because you don't have a lot of transaction. And so I pulled up this chart, which is basically showing like the transaction volumes in different cryptocurrencies, or like in different blockchains. And so Ripple actually has more transactions, about 3 times more transactions than Bitcoin right now, which is owing to some of the more advanced functionality that exists in network orders and so on. And so people are placing orders, canceling orders. So it's actually causing much greater transaction volume than you even see in Bitcoin.
And imagine how much further away this is in present day. Going from 2015 to 2017, you see Ripple has always had a consistently higher transaction volume than Bitcoin and Ethereum.
So obviously, we think that Ripple has a huge amount of room to grow. So you saw some of the spikes in that chart. So actually, we're not running at capacity, or the network's not running at capacity. You can grow quite a bit more. Whereas with Bitcoin, I think it's pretty much at capacity, right? There's actually a transaction backlog of transactions that can't get processed. And finally, of course, this is the easy one because proof of work is heavily dependent on this sort of work that costs a lot of electricity. So obviously, that's costing a lot of that. Whereas with Ripple consensus, you basically cut that part out and you just go straight to validation, which is relatively efficient. Now, all of these things are kind of the end benefits that you see as a user, right? As a user, I can move money around very cheaply. I can move money around very quickly. Those are the things that I care about when I want to use a digital asset. But of course, we also want to talk about how we can guarantee these benefits in the long run. How can we guarantee those benefits in the future? And so that depends a lot on governance. So the way that Ripple is governed, or the way that XRP is governed, is it's an open source project. It's up on GitHub. The way that new features get added is people make pull requests on the GitHub project. And if the maintainers decide that they want to include that particular pull request, it gets included and deployed. And then miners vote on new features, which are called amendments, by basically their position in the topology. And then once they've voted with a supermajority, then the feature actually goes live. Now, this is pretty similar to how it works in Bitcoin, except in Bitcoin, the miners are not chosen by the users, but rather they're basically self-appointed. Like they can become miners, they can get voting power just by being efficient at mining. And that's a big difference. In Ripple, it's kind of more like a democratic process where users choose which miners that they want to listen to. And so miners that listen to a lot, they tend to get more influence in the network.
And who do you think are these users, right? Who do you think are the users that are appointing these validators, these very highly secure validators for the XRPL? The users are the central banks. The users are the banks, right? The #1 customer of Ripple that they're aiming towards, these payment providers, these banks, right? So setting up a very strong governance model for the XRPL.
The other thing that's kind of different is that in Bitcoin, a lot of the voting power is very concentrated. So most of it is in China today, whereas with Ripple, the validators are globally distributed. So there's validators in a lot of different countries all around the world.
And this is just in 2017, mind you, at that time. So you already had Microsoft, MIT, validator, right? WorldLink, Bitso, Tokyo, GateHub,
validators in like most time zones.
Australia.
Next is kind of like whenever you're talking about distributed systems, so like any textbook that you pick up, the first thing they'll tell you is the distributed system is only reliable if the individual nodes in the distributed system are reliable, because if too many nodes fail at once, the whole system breaks down. And I think that's a lesson that as a community we haven't really internalized yet, because there haven't been very many large-scale failures, but it's definitely a risk, and it's something that other distributed systems have experienced over the years. And so one thing we should think about is actually the quality of the miners as well, the quality of the validators. So in the case of Bitcoin, a typical Bitcoin mining operation is very much built for efficiency. It's very much built for how cheaply can I hash. So you have these racks of computers, very bare bones. You have the absolute bare bones infrastructure. This is from a mining farm in China. And compared to that, like with Ripple, the way the validators are chosen is by the users. And so users care about the quality of the validator, the security, and so on. And so Ripple validators are quite different. This is a picture from one of the Ripple validators in Tokyo.
Look at that. Did you just see the comparison between like your mining farms for Bitcoin and then the validators that are running these Ripple validators? Look at this freaking Tokyo one right here. Chosen by Ripple users, which are banks and payment providers, right there telling you, and are selected based on security, track record, jurisdiction. And look at this. Look at this freaking building, man. I would love to visit this one day.
Tokyo, which is an absolute state-of-the-art data center. They really know what they're doing. They have top-notch security, these vein scanners to check your vein patterns when you enter. So I feel a lot more confident that you can't compromise a large number of Ripple validators as easily.
It's freaking biometric security to try to access these validators. They check your brains. They like do a brain scan or whatever did he say? Checking how like your pulse is and whatever.
Easily as you could compromise a number of Bitcoin mining pools. And then also the particular server room that the Ripple validator is located in hasn't been down ever since this was built in 2001. So they also provide very good uptime, which also helps the network uptime, network availability. So if we take all this together, XRP is just the best asset for settlement, for payments, especially in an enterprise context. So if you want to actually move large amounts of money around using a decentralized network, you can't do better than XRP today. So thanks for paying attention.
Can't do better than XRP today. XRP, the first enterprise-ready digital asset. That was a fun live stream with y'all guys. I know it was very heavily Ripple and XRP focused, but we were just taking a little jump into the past, educating ourselves a little bit more, and just, not underestimating what XRP is going to be able to bring to the table, especially, enjoy these days with this no certainty in terms of regulation type of stuff going on with XRP, because it's preventing a lot of, not only speculative investors from jumping in on it, but once we get that regulatory certainty, you're going to see a lot of these companies around the world now knowing that XRP is a globally recognized digital currency, non-sovereign, not neutral to any country type of digital currency that can be used. I mean, get ready for the show that's going to be happening in front of our eyes. Lest we forgot the validator they have in the bunker. Exactly, right? Nazis want to save ice bears and penguins. Climate is upon us. Yeah, I hear you. The environmental thing is part of the WEF narrative for the masses. Of course, he was saying it way back then. Exactly. Yep, exactly. Spurs continued critical analysis for sure, XR Pelican. What's up, my man? I think I gave somebody a wrench just recently. Hopefully, Mert Yuxel. What's up, my man? Here's a wrench. Please use it wisely. With a wrench comes great responsibility. Do you think Apple will issue coins? I'm sure you'll be able to maybe own portions of Apple stock and be able to use that as a form of payment sometime in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if they implement their own tokens as well, but once again, it's just a silo. I'm not too worried about these enterprises or institutions creating their own token, especially if it's not an interoperable system, that's focused heavily on payments. But anyways, guys, appreciate you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Much love to the Blue Crew. I'll see you guys very soon. Let me make sure the music doesn't blast your ears on the way out here. But yeah, guys, always fun going through this information, streaming with y'all, hanging out with the Blue Crew. Always good times. Much love, Blue Crew. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, BTC community, XRP community, DLT community, crypto community, Blue Crew, Dot community, Atom community, Solana community, XLM community, HBAR community, XDC community, QNT community, Blue Crew, and all the communities out there. The future is distributed ledger technology, and the future is bright. Our future is bright. Much love, Blue Crew. See you guys in the next one. Adios.